Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about one of my new favorite things, probably in the last 6 months or so, podcasts. Podcasts are not new. I used to listen to podcasts, really one podcast back in, I guess that would have been 2000, I don't know. I've slept since then, 2012, 2013, when I was up late nursing babies. And it really got me through those late nights, early mornings, and I kind of dropped them after a while. I had an iPhone with not too much memory, not nearly enough memory, and I didn't have room on my phone. I barely had enough room to take pictures. And now, right before Christmas last year, we got new iPhones, and this is a 256 gig. I think this phone might have more memory than my actual laptop. My laptop is also about 8 years old, so maybe that's part of it. But I have absolutely fallen in love with podcasts in this season of life. I didn't know what the hype was, because if I'm going to listen to someone talking, I'd rather listen in an audiobook. And I've been loving audiobooks as well. But this is short, no more than maybe an hour. And I can listen to these in my early morning routine, which I did a video about, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. I'm losing track of time here. But I listen to those when I'm doing dishes, when I'm folding clothes, usually when I don't really have to pay attention to my kids because they're in bed. So I wanted to share with you some of the podcasts that I've been listening to, some of my favorites. Also keep in mind, I kind of stick with the same theme. I really enjoy things for moms, I really enjoy things for women, and I really enjoy things that have to do with faith and theology, more than just Christian things, but things that take you a little bit further in theology and apologetics and stuff like that. I've always loved apologetics since high school, and I learned about all the other things that were out there. I really dug in on how to defend my faith, and even more so here in the last 6 months or so. So I wrote all of these down, and seriously, I could take you through a tour of my phone and my podcasts, and it would be real long. But here are some of my favorites. I absolutely love, I think the first one that I found recently, and by the way, actually, let's go back. When I was listening to one podcast back when I was nursing babies, it was the Breakaway podcast, and I still love this one and recommend it. Breakaway is the huge on-campus Bible study at Texas A&M. I went every single week without fail when I was a student, and I just loved it. And they are on their third Breakaway leader since its inception. Oh my goodness, that would have been 30 years ago. I think it was 1989 when it started. And so they're on their third speaker, and he's really good. He's my age. So the Breakaway podcast. And by the way, I can list all of these below, and these are in no particular order. Probably, I don't even remember, maybe 6 months ago, I don't know, it was still cold outside. My friend Alisa, who is the Life of a Homeschool Mom here on YouTube, she recommended to me a podcast called Cultish. And it was one of those where I binged all of the episodes. It probably took me about a month. It's a relatively new podcast. I think it's only been coming, it's less than a year old, maybe since like last October. And they talk about cults, but they don't just talk about cults. They talk about them within respect to the Bible, like why they're not right, and why they are called a cult. And it's with Jeff Durbin, who is the pastor at Apologia Church in Phoenix, Arizona. And Apologia Radio also has a great podcast. But I love Cultish. On that note, I also love Sheologians. It's two ladies who are also, they record out of the Apologia studios and also the Cultish studio. And it's refreshing to hear women talk about theology. And these two ladies, Joy and Summer, they're 30. So they're kind of like on the younger side, compared to me. And I love the humor and the realness that they bring to this. And when you get people talking about theology and apologetics, I feel like there's there's standard there. I don't feel like, I know there is standard, there is truth, but I just love the different ways that people think and the different ideas and perspectives that they bring to the table. And it took me a little while to hop on with Sheologians, and the reason why is because they do a lot of giggling and off-topic stuff, probably like the first 5 to 10 minutes of the program, but I've come to love it. Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I laugh a lot. Kind of on that note, but different, is another podcast called Theology Gals, and these ladies dig into some really, really good stuff. They dig in a little bit deeper than some other ones. They dig like one of the more recent episodes was called Order Salutis, so like the order of salvation, and it made my mind, my brain had to work real hard. Some of these, they're not fluffy, but they're easy to listen to. They're easy for me to follow. There's some in Theology Gals that I have to listen to a couple of times. That being said, they are Presbyterian, Paedobaptist, meaning child and infant baptism. I do not believe in that at all. Just with anything, you have to discern, you have to know what you believe when you go in with any of these things. So I agree with a lot of what they say, not 100%, but they, again, come from, I think, a different point of view than me. And I really enjoy hearing what they bring to the table. They're not super giggly and everything. They kind of jump right in. They get right to the point. And I enjoy it a lot. There are a lot of their episodes that I can't listen to when I am, getting ready for the day, or when when I'm folding or whatever. There's somewhere I have to like sit with a pencil and paper, or with a pen and paper, and try to order my thoughts. And if I find it's getting a little deep and I can't really sit and do that, then I will have to switch to another show. Grace to You. I've heard John MacArthur since I was a kid. I love John MacArthur. He's an old guy, and he's been preaching a long time. He's been preaching over 50 years, and I think just he brings some solid truth and humor into his sermons. The great thing about this is that it's from his Grace to You radio show, which is only 30 minutes a day. And so if I want something short, like while I'm getting ready for church in the morning or getting ready for the day, when I only have maybe 30 minutes, 28 minutes, something like that, I'll listen to Grace to You. Same thing with Renewing Your Mind, and that is R.C. Sproul's podcast. And again, I've been listening to R.C. Sproul for a long time. Probably didn't really dig into it until more lately. My dad loves R.C. Sproul. He met him at a convention years and years ago, and my dad is a huge fan of R.C. Sproul, and he actually gave us some DVDs that I haven't watched yet, but I want to. But his also can be pretty deep at times, but I do love that they are short. And basically what it is, it's sermons that are broke up into 30-minute chunks. So you could listen to a whole sermon and it would maybe 2 or 3 podcasts long. So you just have to kind of plan it like that. Revive Our Hearts is another amazing podcast. It's Nancy. She used to be Nancy Lee DeMoss. Now she is Nancy DeMoss Walgamuth. And I've heard her on the radio for probably the last 10 years. She would come on in the middle of the day. And when I worked from home, sometimes while I was eating lunch, I would listen to her on the radio. Or when I've been driving in the middle of the day, it would come on the radio and I would listen to it then. And she is just so solid. She has amazing talks. I like listening to either like her talks to a group of women or her in the studio with some other women discussing things. I appreciate her perspective that she brings to things. She's, I want to say, in her early 60s maybe, and she just got married like last year or the year before. So she was a single woman for a long time. And I think that is really refreshing because she didn't walk through the the wife, mom, thing through early age. She didn't walk through that. So I love to hear kind of how she sees the world. It's very different than I do. And she has such a sweetheart and a heart for women, I truly believe. And she has some good books too. I could talk about that another time. Alisa Childers. I just found her recently through a Facebook group that I'm in called Discerning Progressive Christianity. I think that's what it's called. And she comments in there a lot. She posts in there a lot. And she's, I want to say, about my age. And she has a podcast where she talks a lot about apologetics, a lot about theology. I've maybe only heard probably fewer than 10 of her podcasts. But I was just listening to a series today called Pretty Little Lies and Pretty Little Truths. And I feel like where she is, she speaks to me right now. and all of these people, it's not really about them. What they're doing is they're talking about the Word of God. They're talking about the Bible. All of these people who I have mentioned, it's just the way that they'll talk about certain passages and kind of unpack what it means. And our preacher today, it's a Sunday when I'm filming, our preacher today was talking about how he actually preached on the same passage twice. Last week, it was James 5, 1 through 11, and he preached also James 5, 1 through 11 this week. But he came at it with not a different point of view, but he talked about something different, related but different. And that's one thing that I love. They all kind of come at God's word where we can meet and all agree on the truth of it, but see it from different perspectives. And another old favorite is Risen Motherhood. I feel like that is a good podcast for moms of any stage. Any age and stage, highly, highly recommend. And the last one is brand new. It's called Revived Thoughts. And I just found out about this a few weeks ago. The idea of this, I think, is so neat, and their execution is great. It's two relatively young men who they realize that there's all these famous Bible teachers of way past, like before YouTube, before the podcasts, before tape recorders even. And they realize that we can only read these sermons, which is cool and all, but there's just something about listening to their sermons. And we're talking Spurgeon, Moody, George Mueller, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and the list goes on. And what they've done is they read these sermons in their podcast, but before they start reading these sermons, and these are old, but still completely relevant and completely true. But before they start reading these sermons, they actually give a little bit of a history lesson, like a 5 to 10 minute, sometimes longer history lesson. So you have a little bit of historical context, why they may have been preaching on this, maybe why this was something important for the people of their day to hear. So that's my list for now. I hope that you enjoyed this today. If you would like to, I would love to learn about more. Again, I could just show you on my phone. I have a lot of different things. It's mostly theology related. There's Passion, there's Relatable, Ali Stuckey, what was that one? Reformed and Reloaded. I like a lot of Reformed theology stuff. There's Gospel Coalition, sounds like MLM, but okay. Ben Shapiro, Classical Homeschool Podcast, Pam Barnhill. That's a good homeschooling one. Read Aloud Revival, Tony Evans. So yeah, there are a lot of amazing teachers on here, but I'm really loving this lineup that I have on my phone, and it's been such a blessing to me. After I read my Bible in the morning, that's when I kind of get to my chores, and I like kind of continuing my quiet time with my podcast. And I'm actually going to do a video soon about kind of my Bible study routine and materials and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. If you have a favorite podcast, please leave it in the comments below so I can maybe find some more, and maybe some other people who are watching this can learn about more podcasts, because man, there are a lot of them. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe and of course give me a thumbs up if you like this today. And I hope you're having a great day and I'll see you next time. Bye.